presence, the ability to stay in the room, empathy, the ability to feel the room, and attunement, the ability to move with the room. The job for us to be in healthy relational long-term dynamics is to expand our capacity for tension, expand our capacity for friction.
Right.
One day after we've done this work, there will be less friction. It's not whether or not you're going to rupture. You absolutely 1,000 million trillion gazillion % will.
Hi guys, on today's episode we have Baya Voce. Baya is such a wealth of information. I feel like I could do 10 episodes with her and still just feel like I'm scratching the surface of everything she has to offer. Baya is a couples practitioner that focuses on repair in relationships and why that's so important. She's also a couples researcher at Columbia University, where she even does some research with MDMA and couples therapy. Baya was so interesting. I think you guys are going to love this one. Baya Voce, thank you so much for being here. It is truly an honor to be in your presence.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here.
So you really specialize in relationship work, and not just relationships, but relationship repair. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And do you do research and do you work with clients?
Yeah, I do both. I do research specifically with MDMA and couples.
Cool.
With Columbia University and MAPS.
Okay.
And then I work just with patients doing couples work and group work and repair work.
So can you tell me, what do you think is the factor that makes long-term healthy relationships?
Well, my answer is not going to be surprising here. Very few of us have healthy relationship models. I speak to audiences and I will often ask people, how many of you have had models from your caregivers or your parents that you want to emulate in your relationship? And I bet most of your listeners are not going to be surprised that hands don't go up.
Right.
So these are our informative years.
Right.
Then we come into culture, and there's no dialogue unless you're in therapy, unless you're studying self-help, unless you immerse yourself in relationship books or follow therapists or whatever it is. There's nowhere in the zeitgeist that is telling you what healthy relationships look like. We have been modeled from Disney, Hollywood rom-coms, and it might sound kind of silly and trite, but the truth is, imagine how many times you have watched one or two Disney movies. You could probably be like, oh yeah, I remember watching The Little Mermaid 700 times as a kid or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. There's no way that doesn't seep into the back of your mind as like, that's the thing to look for.
Totally.
And then we see Hollywood rom-coms, same thing. There's this happily ever after moment. There are big, huge fights and then happily ever afters. And now add on social media, where the narrative is hashtag couple goals. Mm-hmm. And you see parents who have 6 kids who look totally put together. And you're like, wait a second, that just does not look like the relationship I'm in.
Yes.
And so it's really hard to actually understand what a healthy, long-term, secure functioning relationship is. Mm-hmm. So what I would say, and again, you're not going to be surprised by this, is that I don't actually care how much couples fight.
Okay.
How much couples fight is not an indicator of health or sickness in a relationship.
Really?
Now, how people fight matters, right?
Okay.
We don't want to be screaming at each other. We don't want to be calling each other names. I mean, but like the truth is, we're gonna get triggered.
Right.
We're gonna say things we regret.
Right.
We're gonna have to walk back things we say, or say things that we are really scared to say and say them wrong. I mean, that's the nature of 2 or more nervous systems coming together and saying, let's do this dance called intimacy.
Yeah.
Now, what I very much believe is the healthiest indicator of relational health is repair. Mm-hmm. It's not whether or not you're going to rupture. You absolutely 1,000 million trillion gazillion % will. Mm-hmm. It's how quickly and how well can you come back together. And at the beginning, by the way, how well and how quickly, I got to tell you, likely, probably not very well and not very quickly. It takes practice. Repair is not something, again, if we look at the systems that we were raised in and the models that we were given from our family structures, oftentimes people are seeing all out war in our families and nobody's making up, or they're not seeing any conflict. And the conflict may happen in the bedroom and the kids aren't watching, or it might be seething and it's not spoken, but it's felt as a little one. Very few of us are watching the very natural cycle of connection, disconnection, and repair. And this cycle of connection, disconnection, repair is as natural as breathing. It's like we literally come out of a womb into the world and we're like, cool, I'm here. And then what happens? Usually we start crying, disconnection. Okay, now mom puts us on her boob. Repair. Loud noise. Crying. Somebody comes and rocks us. Connection, disconnection, connection, repair. It is such a natural cycle, but because we don't see that modeled, we don't think that disconnection is actually natural. And so we feel like if we fight, then something is wrong. And so we're leaving relationships earlier. We're able to swipe as many people as we want. And so we now are living in a world, especially in our society, where it's so easy to choose next and not opt into deepening.
Right.
But part of why we're not doing that is not actually the fault of our own. It's because we don't understand how healthy it is to have rupture and to have conflict.
Okay.
I mean, how many times, by the way, have you heard, whether in a relationship of your own or somebody else has said, or maybe you've even said, I feel like this should be easier.
Oh, yeah. I've said it about my own relationship. I've said it about my parents' relationship.
Totally.
Right? Even just, that's so common, I think, to think and say to yourself, whether you're actually saying it out loud to anyone besides your therapist.
That's right. That's right. And listen, I'm also not advocating for a bunch of conflict. I'm just saying that if you have it, some couples are actually more high conflict than others. Some couples are going to be more conflict avoidant.
Right.
There are 3 stages of relationships that we sort of cycle in and out of. The first is what we know as the honeymoon phase, right? I call it the merge, which is just, again, 2 or more nervous systems coming together and being like, wow, there's a part of me that was missing and now it just feels whole. And then there's a second phase where we start to be like, okay, those things that were kind of cute and annoyed me a little at the beginning are starting to really grind my gears. Yeah. And now those cute things turn into like, I can't deal with the fact that you're so messy, or why don't you ever cook, or, you know, whatever small micro ruptures end up happening that turn into bigger ruptures. But at this point, we need to move from the merge, where we're a little bit, I hesitate to even use this term, but it can be helpful for people, codependence. It's like we're one. We're a little bit enmeshed. Yeah. And then we need to differentiate. Right. And at that point, we move into independence. Right. And that's another stage. And this is also where we hit the power struggle. This is where conflict really starts to hit. This is where our wounds, our patterning really starts to show up. And most people, and this has been studied by Harville Hunt and Helen LaKelly Hunt, and they're, old school relationship experts. And basically, they have found that most people stay in the power struggle for their whole relationship. They don't actually know how to get out.
Really?
And then the third stage is interdependence. This is where you're like, okay, you are Nicole through and through. I am Baya through and through. You are not me. I am not you. And by the way, I cannot change you. And so there's a process called disillusionment, which every couple goes through, but a lot of couples end the relationship during this process. And the process looks like losing hope. It looks like, I can't do this anymore. Everything over on your side of the street kills me. Like, I can't, this is too much. And for some relationships, they should end. I don't necessarily think that all relationships should stay together. But there's a way where through the process of disillusionment, you ask yourself, and this is from Terry Real, who's a fantastic couples therapist, and he asks this question that I think is absolutely brilliant, which is, am I getting enough in this relationship in order to grieve what I'm not? Am I getting enough in this relationship in order to grieve what I'm not? And what you're basically saying is, you're going to be human through and through with all of your fallacies. And unless you want to change, I can't change you. It's ultimately got to be up to you, because change doesn't happen when I try to control you, when I want you to be different from me. the person who is on the other side of wanting to be changed, we feel controlled, and nobody likes feeling controlled. And so we'll usually dig our heels in. So it's the disillusionment is the process of surrendering and saying, okay, I can't do anything to make you different. I can speak my pain. I can speak using I language. I can beg you. And still you may have the same behaviors that you had 3 years ago, and they're not going anywhere. And then I get to make the decision. Does that work for me? And what do I need to go through? If the answer is yes, what grieving process, what acceptance process do I need to go through in order to say, okay, you're actually never going to be clean? Or on, much deeper levels, maybe you're never going to get along with my family. Or maybe you're going to say no in moments I really wish you would say yes. And it's always going to make me feel like I'm not actually cared for. What work do I do then to come into acceptance if acceptance is where I want to go?
Right.
But we take away our own power when we need our partners to change, and then our partner doesn't. And then we get all upset over here, when actually disillusionment is a fantastic process. Like if you're here, if you're listening and you're like, oh, I am in the place where I am feeling like, should I stay or should I go?
Right.
I'm asking myself that question. We've been in the same patterns for a really long time. Then this question can really, really support you starting to understand what's mine to do, grief work, really getting into.
So sorry,
Yeah,
let me
please.
just pause for a second. So we literally need to do grief work to mourn the pieces of our partner that we are not getting, that we are craving. So the silly example, but so relevant for so many people, is one person is clean and the other one is messy, right? One is type A, one is type B, or more type B than the other. And it drives you bananas that they just cannot make the bed when they get out of it or pick up their dirty laundry, right? And it can drive you crazy and just build up to be this resentment thing. You literally need to do grief work to just understand almost like the piece of me that is going to have that fulfilled, I need to mourn.
It's a really good way to put it. That's exactly it. You are never going to make the bed in the morning. It's a really good example. Or you're never going to pick up after yourself. And maybe on my end, I have been picking up after you. So now I'm totally resentful. Not because you've asked me to do it, but because I prefer it a certain way.
Right.
So the question becomes, if I want the house to look a certain way, am I willing to pick up after you because it's important to me? Not taking the space of martyr, which is I'm going to do this with gritted teeth and then hope I get validation for it and be angry the next time I have to do it and feel like you're my child, and now we're in a parent-child dynamic. And so there's all of this that basically takes back your own autonomy of choice. Because when we feel like our partner's not changing because of us, when we feel like they're not changing because they don't love us enough, or because they don't care enough, or because they walk by the trash every time and they don't take it out because they're literally doing it as a vindictive behavior against us, whatever it is for you. Like, I keep saying this because I think it's so important. We literally give them so much control over our internal state. And the process of disillusionment, which gets us out of the power struggle, by the way, it literally says, I am going to let parts of our relationship die in order for a new kind of relationship to be reborn. You may have heard like people like Esther Perel or others talk about how many times they've been married all to the same person, but that their relationship leading up had to die. It literally had to go, the way that they recognized their relationship before literally had to go away and die in order to be reborn so they could understand what the new relationship is. But so many of us are so scared to loosen the hook.
Yeah.
So we keep the hook because it tethers us to control and safety and love and not being abandoned or left or needing to deal with being alone. And so we would much rather deal with that pain, which is, I can't believe you're still not picking up after yourself, than the pain of, you're never going to change. It may or may not have anything to do with me. And I'm the only person who can do anything about that.
And I would assume this is also relevant when you're in a long-term relationship, such as Esther Perel has been in a long-term marriage, right? We all change as human beings throughout the course of our life. My partner and I have been together since I was 25. I was so different at 25 than I am at 31. And same for him. It truly feels like two completely different people than we are now. And I've had that moment, as I'm sure many people have, where it's, God, this quality that I fell in love with isn't really present anymore. Like, because he has grown up and I've grown up. You know, I'm sure there are qualities of mine. Like, we used to go out drinking 4 nights a week. I haven't had a drink in months. It's those things, like whether it's lifestyle or just the things that light you up, change over time. Do you need to mourn those as well?
Anything that you're holding on to that is causing your own suffering, there is mourning to do. There is grief to move through because you're the one in the suffering. And that's the most important thing to know.
Right.
Just using the example you gave, for your partner, it might not bother them that you haven't drank in 4 months.
Right.
And for you, maybe it does bother you, or maybe it bothers them that you used to go out 4 nights a week and now you're more of a homebody. And who's the one who's feeling the impact of that?
Right.
And of course you can bring this to your partner. It's not like you have to do this all by yourself. But when you bring it to your partner and you do it with an agenda for them to be different so that you are more comfortable, nobody on the other side of that likes how that feels. I mean, anybody who's listening has gone through somebody wanting to change them and it feels like control. And they're like, I don't want to do it. And so again, you dig your heels in because we want to feel like we're autonomous human beings making our own choices.
Right.
Because then we can be proud of ourselves and we can see ourselves through a drinking habit or whatever it happens to be. But if our partner keeps saying, I need you to stop drinking, for instance, stop drinking, then you're now feeling your own shame about your relationship with drinking that maybe you don't want to have. And nobody likes to feel shame. So what are we going to do? We're probably not going to do anything about it because now we want to prove a point that you're wrong and we're right.
Fuck.
I know.
It's just so real. That's why I was so excited to talk to you, because your work just hits the nail on the head of like every relationship I've ever been a part of and observe. We fight, and it's really about that conflict resolution and that self-awareness and deep understanding of what is the real problem and how do I deal with it. I mean, anybody who's working with a good therapist will understand the concept of you're not going to change them, so you have to work on you, right? But the concept of I have to grieve that is mind-blowing to me.
It's what most of us don't want to face because grieving is so much harder.
So hard.
And more vulnerable than pointing the finger.
Oh, God, yeah.
Even if we're not pointing it out loud, by the way, even if we're just muttering it under our breaths, it's so much easier than to address perfect example. This might sound small, but it has been a huge source of tension for me and my wife. She is so much more extroverted than I am, and she has energy like an Energizer bunny, and I just don't. And so she could stay out all night, and I'm like in bed by 9, and that's a good Saturday night, maybe 10 on like a wild night,
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to come home. And at the beginning of our relationship, I really felt like not going home together felt terrible. I was, because of all the things that I brought into our relationship based on previous relationships, I was scared something was going to happen when she was out. I was scared she was going to break a boundary. I was scared of whatever. And so going home was so intense to do by myself, but it was so much easier being like, can't we just go home together? Healthy couples go home together than actually being like, this is actually my discomfort. And over the course of a long time, I mean, this took probably 2 years for us to really move through because there were so many layered dynamics from both of our histories.
Yeah.
Hers about freedom, mine around safety. That over and over again, I was addressing the part of me that is so scared to be left, the part of me that's scared to be cheated on, the part of me that's so scared to be woken up in the morning just to hear, I have to tell you something, with this like, like that. And that's part of my history. And so of course it's showing up in the relationship.
Right.
But here is where my kind of spiritual beliefs about relationship come into play. I believe that we walk into a relationship, and most of us don't know that we're doing this, but we walk into a relationship with all of the unhealed relationships behind us, whether it's from our caregivers or parents, whether it's from exes, whether it's from friendships, but any intimate relationship, we're walking with all the things that just never got dealt with.
Right.
And we're basically saying to our partners, without saying this, and without really understanding or knowing this, here is all of my unhealed wounding.
Right.
Will you help me heal it?
Right.
And as the partner, we are then opting in, not consciously and not with awareness, to saying, yeah, I'll do that work with you. Not because I have to, but because I love you and because I choose to. And so what ended up happening with Emmy and I, she started coming home, not when I wanted her to, but earlier than she would have wanted. And not once did she ever come home and say, hey, baby, I have to tell you something. And over time, my nervous system started to sink into her staying out later doesn't mean that I'm going to feel betrayal on the back end. But even admitting that, I felt like the weak partner. I felt like the way more vulnerable partner. I felt like the one who had baggage. Like I just felt it was really not fun for me to have to look in the mirror and be like, I'm the one who doesn't want to separate from you, and I'm not willing to. I tried it to override my boundaries to stay later. It did not go well many, many times. And deal with that, with the tension, the friction of, okay, this isn't what I want, but this is what's happening. And then over and over again, and in small micro moments, being like, okay, we can do this. I think what happens in relationships is we understand what it takes to fall in love, literally nothing. You feel an energetic connection, think someone's hot, and you're like, great, let's do this. We don't understand what it takes to stay in love.
Right.
And so what I'm actually pointing to is the necessary friction that all of us are going to come up. We have to come up against this friction. What makes this so tricky is the virtual world is trying to more and more be as frictionless as possible.
Right.
Swipe to meet our partners, click a few buttons to get food.
It's not just the relationships, it's the instant gratification and that instant dopamine hit that we are conditioned in all areas of our life to have now.
And we think that our relationships should mimic that frictionless experiences, those frictionless experiences. But that's not it at all. They shouldn't actually mimic. Right. The job for us to be in healthy relational long-term dynamics is to expand our capacity for tension, expand our capacity for friction.
Right.
One day after we've done this work, there will be less friction.
Right.
But you can't enter into a relationship and not have it and not go through the painful process of understanding, like, we shouldn't control somebody. We know that doesn't work. But oftentimes we need to learn the hard way.
Right. Right. Can we walk back to the 3 stages that you laid out earlier? I just want to have them fresh in my brain. So you fall in love. Honeymoon stage?
Yeah, you can call it the honeymoon. I call it the merge because it's a little bit of that, like, we're an amoeba.
Oh, yeah.
You complete me.
And you become, at least in my relationship, it was that first 2 years, honestly. Oh my God. I was just on cloud 9. We became like one fucking brain and body, And then, it's like that starts to lift and you're like, it's so disorienting.
By the way, if your honeymoon stage lasts 2 years, oftentimes this is when people get engaged and married. So now you're stepping into the next level of commitment without ever really bringing up the wounding.
Yeah. And
commitment on various levels, whether it's moving in, whether it's deciding you're spending your lives together, whether it's having a baby, whatever it is going to bring up different attachment wounds. So anyhow, I just wanted to name that if you're 2 years in and being like, wow, a lot of people get engaged after year 1.
Yep.
Not everybody, but it's common. It wouldn't be common to be married after year 2.
Yeah. We moved in after 6 months and started a business not even a year in. So it's,
That'll do
potentially even more commitment than getting married, right off the bat. You know what I mean? You were
totally.
We started a business with my family. Could not be more my very enmeshed family, by the way.
Wow.
We lived in the city, moved to Florida, started this business, did not even realize it was going to require us to move full time. And we're just so deep in it, by the time we were lifting out of our merge phase, I was just not okay. Because I was just like, what? Like, I just didn't know what was going on. I just felt so disoriented. Okay, so merge phase, and then the second phase is what?
So the second phase is independence. This is where you separate from each other, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, you are an individual human being, and I am a different individual human being.
There are things that you're passionate about that I'm not passionate about, and that is okay. And I struggled with that. We genuinely had that. Like, I had those moments of like, what do you mean you don't want to spend 24/7 with me? And then like when you actually reflect, you're like, I don't want to spend 24/7 together. Like, that's so nice to have alone time. But it's, once again, like you're just out of this different phase and you're like, does that mean we're not in love anymore?
This is the power struggle, right? I mean, I like the visual of an amoeba because it's literally like you're trying to like untangle yourselves from, wait a second, I thought we were going to be like this forever and now we're not. And what does that actually mean? And this stage can take, I mean, like I said, literally forever.
Right.
People die in the power struggle.
Wow.
People divorce in the power struggle, and people split in the power struggle.
Right.
So this phase is the bulk for many of us.
Right.
The bulk of our relationships.
Wow. Okay. And then the last phase is called what?
Interdependence.
Interdependence.
Yeah. So this is where
we accept.
We accept. And now we can start to see each other's genius a little bit better. Right. We start to understand the benefits. Mm-hmm. Like now I actually totally see the benefits of Emmy, my wife, staying out later and me going to bed earlier. And to your point, like I get more alone time when I don't try and stay out. I don't exhaust myself. I mean, so you're starting to be like, okay, wait, this actually makes sense for the dynamic. This is actually healthy for the dynamic. I start to see you for who you are and fully embrace that instead of try and cling to what I thought you were or what I wished was going to happen. I mean, this is, talk about grief work, you're kind of grieving in some ways a future that may never manifest and coming into present day acceptance of, okay, here's what exists.
Right.
I don't know where we're going. Right. I don't know if we're going to change. And then having a softening around that, a surrendering around that, that's not so tightly gripped to the control of what things look like.
Okay.
But again, that's not a quick process. It's a quick to say.
Right.
Simple, not easy though. This literally takes people years. And by the way, I'll just note, you can be in interdependence and be like, wow, things feel so good. And then one of you can go through a major transition, like you lose a job or you have a kid or a parent dies or anything. And then you can go right back into the power struggle. And you can also have moments of merging. As we all know, relationships are not so linear. It's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of back and forth. So you could have, I remember talking to one couple who went through the hardest year of their relationship. And they said the only reason they didn't get divorced was because it was such a pain in the ass. And then that was followed by the best year of their relationship.
Wow.
And they were saying there was no way they would have stayed together.
Wow.
Had it not been so hard to actually break up.
Wow.
I know. So you just never know.
That is so interesting.
The other, and I'm promising I'm going to let you time, just have things coming.
No, I love it.
Sure, I say them.
So
somebody else actually told me this, and I thought this was a brilliant move. When it came to their disillusionment, or they had really committed, they had gone all in, and they weren't married, but they were in it for life, or they wanted to be. They were really committed to one another. Basically, they said, if we get to a point where one of us wants to leave, where something is going on, then we will take a year to try 3 major interventions. So whatever that is for them, maybe they go on a week vacation. Maybe that means they start going to therapy full time. Maybe, whatever it is they would decide on what those interventions were. Maybe that solves it. But if it didn't, then they would take 3 months apart.
Okay.
And then they would try 3 more times.
Wow.
3, 3, 3. I actually thought that was so brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it gives you the time and space and breath to go through a huge process. Now, for some of us, we don't need to do that. We're not in it for the long haul, or we're still choosing whether or not this is our person. But if you've gone all in with somebody and you're like, this is my person, and you don't know if you're in a healthy dynamic. I'm not talking about abusive or manipulative relationships, by the way, just to be very, very clear. But you're like, we have a lot of tension. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I'm sick of this thing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get over it. Then there's a roadmap that can kind of hold you through the tension, so that both nervous systems can feel safe in the tension, because more likely than not, one nervous system is going to feel really scared by the thought of things ending, and one person might feel a little more excited because of the freedom piece. And so it's not necessary that you two will be in the same place around feeling acceptance around breaking up and splitting. So anyhow, just an idea. I really love the idea of giving spaciousness around an ending.
Yeah. And there's an action plan.
Yeah, totally.
There's a plan, so it's not just like this dark, scary abyss
that you come up with
right
before you're in the abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
really like that idea. I've heard you use this term co-regulation. How would that be a part of everything that we're talking about?
So repair takes 3 basic qualities to embody. The generation of therapists who came before me, the Terry Reals, the Esther Perels, the Harvilles, the Gay and Katie, like all of the people who really came up, in the generations before. Thank God for them, because they gave us frameworks. They gave us imago. They gave us nonviolent communication. They gave us a 4-step apology. Like they really gave the frameworks that we didn't have to hold a conversation, to hold repair, to hold conflict. So I think that's so important. And I think that is step 1.
Okay.
I think so far in the zeitgeist, in the cultural conversation and narrative, we think of repair as a communication skill.
Okay.
Let me reflective
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
Let me repeat back what you say, right? Like and you can use any model that are, any of the models out there, but there's like a basic understanding of using I language and not saying you made me feel, but saying I feel, or right. There are all these kind of tools that we can use. But I actually think the next place we're going in repair, which to me is the most important and part of why repair is so hard and part of why we are often left aching after a fight and feeling like, why didn't that land? Like, why didn't what they say just land? But it should have landed. So I think I just have to forgive them anyway, even though I still feel this tension. The 3 qualities are going to sound esoteric, and I will break them down. Presence, the ability to stay in the room. Empathy, the ability to feel the room. And attunement, the ability to move with the room. So presence is you come at me and you say, hey, I really didn't like the way you talked to me last night. And I don't go into blaming myself. I don't go into some story about like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I'm such a jerk. That's the worst thing I've ever done. I also don't go into blaming you. You're so sensitive. You talked to me like that like 3 nights ago. Why are you getting mad at me about that? Right? We're not in the past. We're not being like, but this happened 3 nights ago, or this happened a year ago, or we're not thinking about all the future projections of what? So now I'm never going to be able to talk to you and just be me again. We're literally able to just be with what our partner says to us. When we're able to do that, when we're able to just listen to what our partner says with full presence, when we're not in the future or past, and when we're not in our own kind of collapse and shame or grandiosity and outward blame, the next move is empathy, to feel the room. What can I do on my side of the street in order to understand on a visceral level what it's like in your world? Truly. That means asking open-ended questions. That means being like, okay, my experience would have been totally different. I never would have gotten upset about this, but here you are getting upset. Okay, that's weird. This wouldn't be me. So you don't have to agree with them, but your role is to be like, okay, if I were you, kind of an alien species over there, who I would never behave that way. So it's strange, even though, by the way, I think I know you so well. So, so I'm asking questions to start to get me into a space of being like, oh my God, if I felt like that, like if you're saying, listen, I feel like you were really short with me last night. I felt like there was this look in your eye that just made me feel like I don't even know what I'm doing wrong, but it's like your heart just left. It reminded me of an ex who would yell at me all the time, and I don't know what to do about that. And you're on the other side, and if you're not saying to yourself, why the fuck are you so sensitive? Like, why does this matter? I want to go to bed right now. Or, oh my God, I can't believe I'm such a terrible person. I can't believe I did that. Or what, right? So you're literally able to be like, okay, whoa, well, if I had an ex like that who did that, I can and talk to me like that. Or if maybe based on what you're saying, like my eyes squint in that way, I can get why you would be hurt by that. Not because I'm bad or wrong, and not because you're bad or wrong. And all of a sudden, I might feel it in my body. That's emotional empathy. Or I might cognitively understand it. That's cognitive empathy. I'm like getting it. I'm getting your world, not because it's my world. And I'm not trying to make it my world. I'm not trying to agree with you. I'm trying to put my little feet in your shoes. I'm trying to take a size 7 and make them fit a size 9. I'm like, and so it's hard. It's like a weird fit. It's kind of like I feel a little gap in the fit, and so I'm needing to do everything. I can maybe put a little padding here, right, to make them fit. But it's not because I agree. Those aren't my shoes.
Right.
It's because I care about you. You're important to me. And so I want to do whatever I can to be like, okay, so yeah, I get why you're saying that would be hard for you. That makes sense to me, but not the saying that makes sense to me, which we all know. We've all probably heard in one modality or another, a line that is, and by the way, that's a great line. I just want to say that makes sense to me is a great line. But when you're not actually saying it in an embodied way where you feel it, like, I really get that.
Right.
I really, really get that. Then it's going to be really hard, in fact, pretty impossible to move to attunement, which is the ability to move with the room. Okay. So I feel you. I understand you. I'm getting you. And now it's like I'm taking the internal and I'm moving it into the external. Do you want a hug? Oh, I can totally see how that, you know what I'm going to do? Next time I feel that kind of tone coming on, I promise I'm going to try and take a few deep breaths. And I don't know if I'm going to get it right all the time, but I'm really going to try and put more energy into knowing when that tone comes out because I know what it brings up in you. And so attunement is the ability to not leave me. I'm not over here placating.
Right.
I'm not over here leaving me completely and being like, oh my God, you're right about everything. And I'm also not saying you're wrong about everything either.
Right.
I have the ability to stay with me and also come into your world and then take action, externalize that. That's attunement.
So are we doing all these 3 things at once, or are these like different phases of like learning how to work with our partner?
I mean, probably some of us are better at one than the other. We need all 3. Okay. If you're not present, it's going to be really hard to have empathy.
True.
If you don't have empathy, it's going to be impossible to attune.
Okay. So they kind of build
sequential. Okay. Honestly, I tried to do them a different way because if the acronym were reversed, I could say it's called EAP. And then I was like, that just doesn't work because so here we are without a good acronym. P. I know, I thought that too. I'm like, it's just not that good. But those are hard to do, but they are the necessary ingredients for us to learn. So whether we fix, whether we fawn, whether we silence, whether we distance, whether we get loud, these are the things that we're going to need to work on our side of the street so that we can have the ability to stay with our partner when they're bringing us something difficult.
Yeah.
And this is going to take practice.
Yeah.
You can't do this out of the gate. It will be impossible. And you're going to mess up. And you're definitely not going to be present for some of it. And then you're going to be like, oh, shoot, I forgot that one. Like, it's just the name of the game.
Yeah. One thing I feel like we kind of buried the lead with this. Does MDMA enhance people's ability to be able to kind of sink into this process?
Yeah. I mean, listen, part of why I find MDMA such an interesting molecule to research is because for many of us, especially those of us who grew up with trauma, we have never had the experience of being attuned to, or some of us have a really hard time accessing empathy. Some of us have a monkey mind that cannot stay present to save our lives.
Right.
With MDMA, your amygdala, the fear response, starts to quiet.
Okay.
And what's being dumped, what you're getting more of, are all these feel-good chemicals, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, so that you feel like a kind of heart-opened warmth and your guard can go down. I had a friend describe it this way, and I think it's a really great way to describe it. It's like if your reaction feels like rain just dumping down on you, with MDMA, it's like you have a roof on your head. So the rain comes down on the roof. You can feel it. It's like, it's there, but it's not all over you. It's not like raining down on you. So you have more space to react.
Okay.
I mean, it's called the love drug because empathy is what is so much easier to access. And from that point, attunement is so much easier to access. So it gives couples an imprint. Listen, MDMA has been studied for many things. PTSD is one of the most common things. And it's what will likely get FDA approved once it goes through the finish line there. But I actually believe that couples is the best use case for MDMA.
And are you using like a microdose compared to when people are recreationally using it, or is it the same?
No, so MDMA is one of those compounds, unlike something like psilocybin,
Right.
where psilocybin you could absolutely microdose. MDMA is not meant to be microdosed. If you take too low of a dose, then you get the kind of speedy effects of it. So your heart races, you can get a little bit of anxiety. So you have to kind of get over a minimum threshold in order to feel the warming effects of MDMA. So it's not something that, at least from my knowledge, is microdosed.
And how is it functionally used? Like, are you just like each taking a pill and then walking into therapy?
You know, listen, MDMA is illegal right now. So we don't know a lot of how people are using it. But right now I'm doing a qualitative research study with Columbia University and MAPS. And we are actually surveying practitioners in the underground, some of whom have been facilitating MDMA couples experience since before MDMA became illegal. So
when was that?
In the 80s.
Got it.
And so that's many, many years, right? So it was legal at one point, and it was just starting to be used therapeutically. And then the party scene got a hold of it, and then the police got interested in it. And then before we know it, now it's a Schedule I drug. And so MAPS has been responsible for doing the clinical trials to help get it legalized for the past 30-ish years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a really long road and we're still not there. So what we're trying to do with this study is we are interviewing underground couples, practitioners, and understanding what are their protocols, how to get their medicine, how do they do dosing. But the MAPS protocols are online, and a lot of people use those, right? Many couples take MDMA on their own if they want, if they have access to it. But the truth is it's illegal, and so a lot of people don't have access to it, which is why the studies are important.
Is it legal in any first world Western countries? No. Okay.
Not that I know of. And by the time this airs, I know people are working on it, but and it's tricky because there's a lot of myths to debunk about MDMA. In 2002, Johns Hopkins ran a study where it's the most common kind of misconception about MDMA that still people believe today, which is it gives your brain holes, like you get holes in your brain from taking it.
I've heard that.
Yes. This study was, the media just ate it up.
Okay.
But then the study was never able to be replicated. So I think it was in 2003 or 2004, they realized that the bottles were mislabeled and they were giving the animals methamphetamine.
Oh my God.
Not MDMA. So the study was retracted, and this came out of Johns Hopkins. Of course, they're such a well-respected academic institute. So of course you're going to believe something that comes out of Johns Hopkins. But yeah, it was debunked. But the damage had already really been done, and so still people believe it puts holes in your brain.
Wow. So like just from my very limited non-clinician knowledge, if you're taking something that is dumping serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, all this stuff into your brain, do you have a come down? Because I always feel like with stuff like that, it's like what goes up must come down. Do you have like a dip afterwards?
Some people do, some people don't. The dip is common because of, exactly to your point, all of this release, and now you're depleted.
Right.
And by the way, I just want to say, for legal purposes, I'm not advocating the use of an illegal drug.
Yes.
So this is purely for knowledge. So I've come to look at that low as part of the journey. With things like psilocybin or ayahuasca or other, traditional psychedelics, a lot of people expect kind of a rough experience at some moment, like that intensity. And with MDMA, you don't get it at the beginning. You get that beautiful high, for a lot of people. And using it recreationally, by the way, it can feel like a totally different compound when you're using it therapeutically.
Oh, okay.
So if you have partied with it, using it in a therapeutic setting, it can feel completely different, especially if you're working through trauma. It may not feel so heart opening. It's like, it's not like it stops you from feeling.
Right.
In fact, it can allow you to access many more feelings. But anyway, I digress. So I actually look at that low as part of the process, because a lot of us have protective mechanisms that will do anything but allow us to feel that bad. And we will busy ourselves, we will numb ourselves. But when we don't have the resourcing to make ourselves feel better in that moment, like what is there to do but feel?
Right.
So I actually look at it as part of the process and not not like a tax you pay just
Okay.
for getting high one day.
And in your mind, last question about this, from what you are kind of devising with the research that you're doing, is it something that would be used more in like a retreat type environment, or would it be like in a similar way of, well, we go to couples therapy every other week, we're doing MDMA for that session?
Well, you don't want to use MDMA that often because it
Okay.
does deplete you. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't want to be using it that often. In the MAPS protocol, I think they, you know what, I don't want to misspeak here, but I want to say they wait a month in between sessions, but there's a chance I'm getting that wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, I recommend people don't use it, more than once monthly.
Okay.
But you could certainly do a session with your therapist that's in the office. It's a good compound to talk
Right.
on. That's why it's such a great compound for therapeutic use.
Right.
Because you can talk and talk and talk and talk. But I find that we can do unguided sessions, of course, on our own. The tricky part about that is that the therapist or the facilitator, the practitioner role also is there for accountability and integration. And MDMA can be hard to remember everything on. It does have that quality. And so if you have a facilitator there, they're often taking notes or helping you remember. And then they're also helping you integrate, and they're helping you prep too. And I think prep and integration are some of the most important pieces to having lasting experiences. I cannot tell you, a lot of people come to me for prep and integration, and I can't tell you how many people have come to me and have had the most amazing peak experience on MDMA. But then within a few months, they're back to baseline because they haven't integrated. It just ends up being another peak experience.
okay.
So to me, MDMA, first of all, I don't think it's a panacea. I don't think everybody should use it. I think there are a lot of ways it can be, it can actually be detrimental. Like if you are in an abusive or manipulative cycle, using MDMA could just be really dangerous for the dynamic, for you to actually see the dynamic clearly. But for some of us who just need an imprint of what it's like to feel connected again, like it's just been so long since you've been able to connect, or B, you're in kind of a bind that you have not been able to get out of, then MDMA can be a really good diagnostic tool and a kind of reset. It's like hitting the reset button, but just because you hit the reset button doesn't mean 3 months later you're not going to be back to your patterns.
Right.
So to me, it's the best way to think about MDMA as a diagnostic tool. You're uncovering the deepest parts, that you're at the root now at this point, and then you work the root in your day-to-day when you're not on the drug.
Yeah. Yeah. It requires a lot of that day-to-day integration. And I assume both parties need to be like doing it together. It's not like one person can be doing it.
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, in some of the research where, people are studying dyads with a woman named Anne Wagner out of Canada is doing work with dyads where one person has a PTSD diagnosis and the only person who gets the medication, the MDMA, is the person with PTSD.
Oh.
We're about to do, I'm with Rick Doblin and with a clinic named Enamory out of San Diego. We're about to start a pilot study for MDMA couples therapy with people who are quote unquote, I mean, whatever this means, healthy normals, but where nobody has to come in with a diagnosis.
Okay.
That hasn't been done yet. So,
Got it.
So listen, do I think it's more beneficial? Probably, but we're going to find out. Like there is research that's been done where only one person gets it and they have great results.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, I guess, like especially considering, most couples, you kind of have that yin and yang, and one may really struggle to get to that heart open space, especially if they have severe trauma. And if the other one doesn't struggle and doesn't have that kind of trauma, like it may not be necessary for them. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. My last question for you is, how has your own view of love and connection evolved through your research and personal journey?
Listen, I'm in this work because repair has been the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And it's been the most important. And so it's evolved by understanding, A, more about what's necessary, and B, honestly, understanding how hard it is.
Yeah.
Like Emmy, my wife, and I, in no way are we perfect. We fight. We still have trouble in moments and in particular subjects making up. And we work it. We work the muscle over and over and over again. So I would say, I think what I understand most now about repair is it's not just a one-time conversation.
Right.
Deep repair often takes revisiting over and over and over again.
Right.
And that it takes both or all people. Like, this cannot be done. One person cannot be the lightning rod for repair and do all of the emotional lifting. It has to be both or all of you, depending on your dynamic.
Okay.
Committed to it.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you and your work?
Thank you for having me. I'm mostly on Instagram. I post almost every day at Baya Voce, Bayavoce. You can go to my website too. I'm launching groups. My practice is full and I always have people asking how they can work with me. And so I'm going to be launching some groups. But Instagram, I am there all the time. I also respond to people, so it's a good way to connect.
Yeah, you're a great follow.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. This podcast was brought to you by Pureform, a comprehensive wellness center in Boca Raton, Florida. The website is pureformhealth.com, or you can find us on Instagram at pureformhealth. Feel free to message us with any questions, and note that you can connect with our providers for consultations over Zoom, from everything from stem cell therapy to hormone replacement therapy and peptide therapy. That's it for this episode of the Healthspan Collective. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and send it to a friend. We'd also love to connect with you on Instagram. Follow the podcast at Healthspan Collective and me at Nicole J. Doran. And leave us a comment on our latest post, letting us know what you'd like us to cover next.